I work as a front-end developer, have 10 years, almost 10 years experience in front-end, and today I'm going to talk about functional programming in JavaScript, even if it sounds like a joke. How many JavaScript developers are in the house? Whoa, okay, this is going to be... And how many of you have already experience with functional programming? Okay, good. I think it's getting worse. I started learning functional programming a couple of years ago because I wasn't really happy about the quality of my code, and I was trying to solve problems that I wasn't able to solve differently. So I realized that after a while I was really able to learn new stuff, and I was improving the quality of my JavaScript code. And we will see it in a couple of examples why. I've tried to keep the level of this talk a bit basic, so there are not really fancy JavaScript stuff, but we will see it in a while. So the problem is that before I was used to think in an object-oriented way. So the world was full of objects. So I was trying to fit everything inside an object, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So while we think that a person could be easily represented by an object because I could walk, I have eyes, it fits inside the object semantic. But how would you represent an animation, a transition, a database transaction inside an object? We force those stuff in a semantic that doesn't belong to it. And while working on many projects coded in this way, not just JavaScript, I'm talking on every different level. So also I'm talking about backend. In the end, what looks at the beginning like that, it ends up to be like that. So I love this GIF. So what's the meaning of functional programming? For me, you will find a lot of mathematical stuff. I read a lot of books about that. But in the end, what functional programming means just building small blocks of code and connecting them together like small pieces of a puzzle. And those small blocks, they just receive an input, they do a computation, and they return you something. So how does this model fit in a JavaScript environment? We will see it that these will help our code being more debuggable, usable, and testable. And we will check the examples here. So I've prepared just a few topics. I wasn't really able to discuss all of them because there are quite a lot. And we start with the higher order functions. The higher order functions they sound like a bit fancy, but in the end are just functions that either they take functions as argument or they return functions as argument. It's not that fancy. So for instance, if we have an array and we return a new object, a new array with a map function, this is a higher order function. And in JavaScript we have many of them gratis in the language because JavaScript has classes for the fancy OOP programmers, but also it has nice higher order functions built inside the language. So let's check an example. So let's assume that the organizer of this event would like to, I got a list of all of you. It's just fake, it's not true. I just gave it this. Otherwise, yeah. So I got a list of all of you, and the organizer said, you know, Gianluca, it would be great if you could filter just the developers coming from Zurich. And say, okay, well, how would you do that? I would do it with JavaScript. Okay, for me, I would do it with JavaScript. And what we have seen many times is that developers use loops to achieve those kind of tasks. So here we have many problems in this code, but I will just list a few of them. So first of all, we create a for loop. This is not testable code. Anytime you create this a for loop or a while, you are writing code in an imperative way. Do this, do this, do this. It's not clear what I want to do in here. And afterwards, we use an index to find an items in a collection. Also this code, I mean, it's totally unnecessary. And also here, we check whether the city is equal to city. Why? I mean, how can I make this code flexible? If they next day will switch and filter all of them from there, I have no chance to get that. And of course, this function doesn't receive any argument, it just filters over a global import. This is really poor code. The whole code that we saw before could be handled in a functional way using higher ordered functions with a filter function, like that. So what's the big step in here? We switched from an imperative way, do something in for, and my coworkers will be really angry at me because they need to read the whole code, from a declarative way of declaring what I'm meant to do with that code. So it's not more, it's more readable and it's also testable. Here I could write unit tests for this code. Another important topic in functional programming is purity and immutable of objects. So when we evaluate a function, of course, we need to, given the same arguments, we need to return always the same results. No side effects are allowed. And of course, this makes me laugh in JavaScript because we write code with configurations, with stuff coming from everywhere. And I have a quiz for you. Who thinks that this code is pure? Raise your hand up. Who thinks this code is pure? It's pure. Without any side effects. Wrong. In JavaScript, I could put an alert in here, and in this case, this code won't be pure anymore. If my coworker inserts something in this function, JavaScript doesn't have us declaring, hey, this function is pure, this function is not pure. We have no way. JavaScript is just the Wild Wild West. So for doing that, we need to force ourselves writing pure functions. But we can't, because we need to deal with stuff like that. So, I mean, we have callbacks, asynchronous code and stuff like that. This is normal, this is Vue.js code, and we have React code. All those functions are not testable unless you do workaround to check the global state. So, you know, we run our code into the voids. We have no way to check what we are doing. So let's check an example. This time I will run some code, so hopefully we run properly. Let's imagine the list which we saw before. Now, dear Martin comes to me and says, you know, Gianluca, we have our fancy React new site. We are doing a restyling, and we will. It's a bit small, huh? So, do you see? You could see also. You could say also something. So they say, you know, create some models out of those developers list we got before. And who can spot the issue here? Do you see an issue with this code? This code will run subtly in any environment unless you do the last line of code. So if I run this code, bam! So circular reference, here we go. We are not working pure here. We have a circular reference here on developers list. We think that it could be handy to store the collection on the model, but if we try to serialize the JSON, we are basically, yeah. So if we want to get pure, in this case, we could just, I mean, this is just an example. You don't need to take this. You can do as you like, but I'm used to create a model template, and then I use a map function to return. I never touched the original object that I have received. Of course, if you have nested objects, then this won't help you as well, but you get the point. So another important topic is lazy evaluation and recursion. So I've had to put them together. So lazy evaluation, if you use gulp for your tasks, you are doing already lazy evaluation. So what's great in JavaScript in the last few years is that we got generators. So we can evaluate stuff on the fly and stop it. Of course, you know also what recursion does. It's a function that calls itself. This is an example in Haskell. So you can code stuff. This function just represents the ones. You can never imagine this in JavaScript a few years ago. And imagine a brain model or those stuff that are just infinite structure. You can never fit those infinite models inside a function. You need to have some kind of way to lazily evaluating your code. This is a brain model, this is my brain. So let's check an example. Let's go back a few examples, but I will show you only one. So let's check again that I'm a bit curious. The list I received of developers is ordered by the way you are sitting here, right? So it's queued in the way you are sitting here. So I'm curious to know what are your friends, the people who is sitting next to any of you. So for example, if I take you, don't take it personal. So if I take you, I would like to know who sits on your right and on your left, right? I assume that those are your friends, and if they are not friends, you can have new friends today. So if I run this function, this is a bit of a disaster, but you get the point here. Here I create a generator that stops the evaluation of the code right here, and I could keep doing that as many times as I like. So I give you to this function an index, and it keeps asking, okay, I got those two guys, but I will do it one more time. Okay, let's take those other two guys, one more time, until it ends. So if you imagine how to do that without generator or without a lazy evaluation, this will be really, really hard to achieve in JavaScript. But I'm doing with generators. So combining all the stuff we have learned together, the void stuff, and also those returning function and functional stuff, how can we improve our code in an environment that is just the wild, wild west? So, we could use reactive strings. We combine both of two words. So, let's check. If we check the DOM, or application lifecycle, it's just a stream of events, and the time represents our streams, or stream. So, events that happen during the life cycle of our application, and we would like to make those methods that before they were void to return stuff. So I wrote a library a couple of years ago. It's called Array.js. So I've prepared just a small example here. So in this example, here it's really dumb. I just update the hue color of the background here, it's on CodePen. But the most important stuff happens really here. So if you see here, I just create, this is really small. So if you see here, I just create a stream of mouse move and touch move events. Then at some point, I connect this stream to another stream. So I get just the pointer position. And then I connect to the hue stream. So we can chain all the stuff together, and our code becomes really more maintainable. Because if at some point, I don't want to get the stream here, but I want to get the position, right? I could put the stream here. I know that this is my new position. See, yeah, whatever. And I could get just the x value of this string. So, now it's just returning the x value. So in this way, we could really code in a really nice way, and we could avoid all the void functions we had before. So to end this talk, I would like to give you some hints. So where can you start writing functional programming? So first of all, it would be nice if you could learn functional programming language. This is also a good start, like Haskell or Scala or Erlang. But if you really can't get rid of JavaScript, you could start by doing this stuff. So Avoid let and var variables, always. Always. There is no reason to use them. No reason. Unless you know what you're doing. Like me. So then you can use returns. You should always return stuff in your functions. You can avoid while loops unless you're in a generator. In that case, you need to keep your loops running. Avoid getters and setters. If some of you work with Vue.js, it could be funny if you start adding computed stuff and getters and setters. It could be easily a mess. Reduce the classes if you don't work with React. If you work with React, poor you. Then you can try to solve issues with recursions and generators. And the most important thing, just declare with your code your intent. Write semantic code. So prefer semantic code to a declarative way because your coworkers will be happy as well. And I was Gianluca Guarini. My code is on GitHub and the demo is here. So I'm done, and if you have questions, I'm here.
Thank you. Yeah, that was bang on time. Well done. Good job. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. That was great.